What's up guys, welcome to another video. So today I thought I would use my experience in flying FPV drones to bring you some tips to help improve your freestyle. So in this video I'm going to talk about 5 mistakes that you can avoid and also what changes you can make to fix those mistakes. And these are things that you can start implementing right away, and I guarantee if you follow through they will help to improve your freestyle. So without further ado, let's get into it with number 5.
Stop neglecting the simulator.
So if you're a bit of a freestyle addict just like me and you're getting out maybe once a week to fly freestyle, but you're not using a simulator because you don't really see the benefit of it, and in fact I think I remember Ladrib once saying, probably in a Rotor Right video, that once you reach a certain level in freestyle that a simulator is not that beneficial and it's better to just get out and fly in real life. And I want to say that I completely disagree with that. I personally generally only get out to fly in real life once per week, but in between that I try to get in at least 1 or 2 simulator sessions, and for me personally I think that it's invaluable. It has not only allowed me to improve my confidence and muscle memory, but it's been completely and totally invaluable when I've been trying to learn a new trick. So personally, I would recommend getting at least 1 or 2 sessions in per week, maybe of at least 30 minutes if you can. And if you do that, it will help you to not only stay consistent, but also improve over time without the risk of breaking your drone and having to pay a load of money to fix it. O3 camera destroyed. So, what are you waiting for? Grab that controller and get practicing. Anyway, without further ado, on to tip number 4.
Stop building 100 different quads.
So if your sole purpose is to improve in freestyle, then you will want to stay as consistent as possible with the gear that you're flying. So for example, I have 2 freestyle drones and they both have the exact same setup. Same frame, same motors, same electronics, same everything, even the exact same tune. And so this means if I'm out flying and I crash my main quad, I can get my second quad out and I know it will fly exactly the same, and it allows me to be consistent. Now, of course, if your goal is to just get out there, have fun, try all different setups, that's perfectly fine, but this tip is specifically for somebody who's looking to improve their freestyle skills. So if you stay consistent with your gear, it means that you're going to stay consistent when you're in the air. So with that said, on to number 3.
Stop changing rates.
So one of the questions I get asked all the time, like literally every single week, is what are your rates? And I've been using the same rates for about 3 years now, and I personally believe that this has allowed me to stay consistent because I haven't changed them once within that period. So if you keep changing your rates, I believe this is bad because you're going to have to keep retraining your muscle memory. So you might be watching this and thinking, but I haven't found my perfect rates yet. So if you're the type of person who's still looking for your perfect rates, I've got some suggestions for you. So it all depends on the style that you're trying to develop. If you're going for that slow flow style, maybe like Bubby or Ladrib, then I would suggest some rates around maybe 500 to 700 degrees per second for each axis. If you're looking for something maybe a bit snappier or juicier, then I would suggest anything between 700 and 900 is a good range to aim for. And if you just like super fast, snappy rolls and you just love a bit of chaos, then I would say anything above 1000 degrees will just allow you to just go mental. I would also say that the yaw axis is probably a bit less needed than the pitch and roll axis, which is why I myself, and I know a lot of other pilots are the same, they have a lower rate for their yaw than they do the pitch and roll. So once you've found some rates that you can work with, stick with them. My advice would be stop searching for rates that fit your style and instead fit your style to your chosen rates, and that will allow you to stay consistent over a long time and you won't need to keep retraining your muscle memory. So I'm going to put my rates on screen right now for anyone who wants to try them out. And with that, let's get on to number 2.
Stop flying in a straight line.
Now this one might seem confusing. But hear me out, okay? Stop flying in a straight line and instead try and maintain smooth and constant turns when you're flying freestyle. This will give the appearance that you've got more direction and control when you fly. So I'm going to give an example. Say you know that there's a gap that you want to hit. Instead of heading towards that gap from a mile away in a straight line, which is going to be both obvious and boring, and also it's probably going to look pretty ugly because you're probably going to be doing loads of minor corrections along the way. Instead, keep that gap in mind, and after a smooth turn, for example, hit the gap as best you can. I know it's not easy, it takes practice, but as soon as you've hit that gap, then head off in another direction. Don't just continue flying in a straight line. This should also give the impression that you're flying with confidence and purpose, and should look smoother, because from personal experience I find it easier to maintain my throttle when I'm going through a turn than I do when I'm flying in a straight line, when I'm probably going to be bobbling up and down a bit and maybe wobbling with some minor corrections as well. So for example, after you've hit that gap, you keep turning, it's going to be super smooth. Once you spot another gap that you like to hit, you can just go ahead and hit it, and this will also, as a bonus, add an element of surprise, and before you know it, you're going to be looking like a pro. One thing I will say though is make sure you add in turns in both directions, both left and right, because nobody likes a freestyle video where somebody's only turning in one direction. Guilty.
Stop using auto shutter without an ND filter.
So do you hate jello in your FPV footage? Yep, me too. And so one thing I see a lot of these days is freestyle pilots shooting without an ND filter and using auto shutter. And you can clearly see a lot of jello, all vibrations, oscillations, all the rest of it. And this could easily be avoided with the use of an ND filter and by locking down your shutter. So I personally shoot using an ND filter and I lock my shutter at 1/60. And this allows me to eradicate any jello, and it also gives that smoother, more cinematic feel with lots of motion blur. So sometimes it even makes me look like I'm going faster, especially when you're flying low to the ground, which I love to do. So I know in my last video I spoke about how stabilization in freestyle was cheating. Well, honestly, this is kind of like a mini cheat that I use personally to get smoother looking freestyle footage. But it's kind of like a more accepted cheat. And so when I compare my DVR footage to my action camera footage, there is a clear and noticeable difference. So slap that ND filter on there, stop using auto shutter and lock it down for maximum smoothness and cinematic feel. So those were, in my opinion, 5 mistakes that you can avoid if you want better freestyle. And not just that, now I'm going to give you 2 bonus tips.
Bonus tip number 1, just keep flowing even if you make a mistake.
Now this, in my opinion, is a great tip if you're working on your style and your flow. So I see a lot of pilots out there lining up again and again and again for the same trick. And sure, this might be great if you're working on your precision or if you're doing something incredibly difficult like a ladder dive. However, if you are trying to craft a unique style with plenty of flow, then this, in my opinion, is not the way to go about it. Instead, practice flying continuous lines and practice working those same gaps or tricks that you're aiming for within those lines. Oh, that's pretty sick. Try not to get too flustered if you miss a trick or a gap that you were aiming for. Instead, just keep flowing and act like nothing happened. Then, try and work it into your flow again. Just remember, if you hit a difficult trick or gap within a line, it's 10 times more impressive than if you've been lining up for that same trick or gap 10 times in a row. So on to bonus tip number 2.
Stop comparing yourself to others.
So we all progress at different speeds in FPV Freestyle, and one thing that I would say is stop comparing yourself to others. And if you're going to keep comparing yourself and your skill to the skill of another pilot, this can only lead to burnout or lack of motivation. So what I would suggest, instead of comparing yourself to another pilot, I would say compare yourself to the pilot that you once were. And in my opinion, that's the best way to stay motivated and just to keep pushing and improving. So So there you have it, some top tips plus a couple of bonus ones. What more could you want? Did you agree with me? Let me know what you think in the comments. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.